Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to the show. Coming at you from the music dungeon, this wonderful world of imagination and banjos. Today we have a super special guest on the channel. Actually, he's not here, but we're just watching a video. This is Rick Beato and Billy Strings. It's their interview. I've been asked a few times to take a little look-see at this, so I thought it'd be a fun idea for today's video. I still don't really know who Billy Strings is. Like, he's a guitarist, he's a singer, he plays bluegrass and stuff. I know he's super popular, but I don't know anything about him, his backstory, his musical influences, any of this sort of thing. And I don't know if he's a real guitarist because the commenters were very split on that. A lot of you guys were very convinced that he's like the greatest guitarist of all time, and then a lot of other people were very convinced that he absolutely sucks. I don't know which of these things is true, so hopefully this interview will enlighten us. So my goals for today's video are: 1. Determine if Billy is a real bluegrass guitarist, meaning can he play bluegrass music up to a professional level? And 2, determine the secrets of his success, because his success is not totally dependent on his musical abilities. I hate to break this to you guys. And I do really hate to say this because I can tell by a lot of your comments that you guys are very innocent in your thinking. But unfortunately, just being really good at an instrument is not enough to get you to the level of fame that Billy Strings is at. So no matter how good he is, there's going to be something else that he's doing that is getting him this popular and famous. And we're going to try and figure out what that is. So anyways, let's get right into it. Rick Beato, Billy Strings, let's go.
Billy Strings is one of the finest guitar players in the world today.
Whoa. Okay. Yeah.
How do I know that? Because he sat back there the other day and blew my mind playing some of the most amazing guitar stuff I've heard in a long time. If you do know...
Are these just going to be basic Tony Rice licks that Rick, being a rock guitarist, has never encountered? I'm kind of guessing that's what it's going to be. Is Billy is going to be playing a lot of Tony Rice stuff, and Rick is going to be absolutely mind blown because he's never heard of Tony Rice before. I could be wrong. I probably am wrong, but we'll see.
Billy, then you know this already. Here's my interview.
This is very high praise from Rick, though, so this interview is going to be good.
Billy,
Yo,
welcome.
Thank you.
Good to have you here.
Man, so good to be here.
I always wondered, I've been listening to you for years, and I know that your dad was, he taught you how to play the guitar, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you start doing it? Like, what did you learn at first? What did he teach you?
I mean, it started before I remember, really. Like in my high chair and stuff, I had this little plastic toy guitar. It was about this big, and it was the 90s, you know, it had neon colored buttons.
Right.
And where the sound hole is here was a speaker, but it had these plastic ridges in the same direction as strings, you know. My dad gave me a pick, and I used to just scratch on that while he would jam, and I would, you know, and he'd be like, look at his right hand, you know, and he's gonna be a picker, you know. And he would always be having these jams. We lived in a trailer park in Portland, Michigan, and my dad and his friend Gerald, they'd have a few beers and pick in the kitchen, and I'd be sitting there trying to jam along. From there, you know, when I was about like 4 years old or something, we were walking through this antique store in my hometown. I just saw this guitar, and it was just like, I need it, you know, and I kicked and screamed and threw a little fit on the floor, and this whole lady that ran the place was like, well, how much do you got? You know, and my dad only had like 30 bucks or something, and she's like, I'll take 30 for it or whatever. So he bought me my first guitar. It was a...
She probably scalped him. A guitar was probably worth like 10 bucks. Imagine the guitar was listed for like $5 or something, and she's like, how much do you have? And he has 30, and she's like, oh yeah, give me all.
One of those house brand, it wasn't a Stella or a Silvertone or anything like that. The name on it was Norma.
Okay.
But it had this big metal bridge that came up to about here, and then, you know, and the painted on wood grain, you know, grill
Nice.
marks.
It's awesome.
I would later smash that guitar in a drunken, just, you know, it's like my first guitar I ever had, and it was a victim of just the crazy times. But yeah, on that guitar, I probably learned G,
Didn't he get it when he was 4?
C, and D.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember specifically, like, watching my dad's hands and just looking, you know. And he would play, and my dad would hold his pick like this, you know, his 3 fingers kind of chilling down to the side right here. And I would look at my hand and then look at his and just try to make it the same, you know. Like, how does Dad do this, and just by looking, you know?
Yeah.
Just really paying attention, trying to make my hand look like his, you know? And so, yeah, he taught me G, C, and D, and probably A, you know?
He knows G, C, and D, so he's already 9/10 of the way there to being a professional level bluegrass musician. That's a good sign. It's a good
E,
sign.
maybe. Started to learn some chords, and then he could teach me fiddle tunes like Beaumont Rag, Salt Creek, and stuff like that. And I was his little rhythm player, you know, from the time I, started learning those chords, probably 5 years old or something. And by the time I was 6 or 7, I could hang on a couple tunes, you know.
Right.
Kind of an interesting thing that I guess what happened is a tune like Beaumont Rag. I mean, that one was really informative for me in that when I was learning it, I kept messing it up, right?
Okay.
And I'd get to the B part and I'd screw it up every time. And finally, I just said, right in the middle of the song, I was just like, stop, just stop. And I go, why don't you just play it and let me listen? And so the song was, Beaumont Rag. It's like this. You know.
You're talking about like all that cross picking there, right? With the open.
I think he's a real bluegrass guitarist. I mean, we'll see as we watch more of the interview, but I've thought this the whole time. He seems like a real bluegrass guitarist. I don't know why you guys hate him so much. Maybe drop a comment if you hate Billy Strings and let us know why.
Open strings, is that the thing that was difficult?
No, just what I was doing.
Yeah.
So my dad would be capoed up in D like this
Yeah.
on the 2nd fret playing in a C position in
Yep.
D. But he would leave me down here like this, which is a really great way to open up the sound
Sure,
of the guitars. This is what I played. And so how I was learning that at first was I was counting, okay, D, 2, 3, 4, A, 2, 3, 4, B, and then G, and then I was trying to...
He can count to 4, which I think is the other thing that you need to be a professional level bluegrass musician. You need to be able to play G, C, and D, and you need to be able to count to 4. So I think this proves it. This is going to shut up all of Billy's haters, I think.
Stuff, and I couldn't count, So I said, stop and just let me listen. And so I listened to what he was doing,
Right.
He was going, and I started listening for those things. The melodies were cues.
Right.
What he was doing was the cue. And I started, instead of going, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, I started going, da 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 da. And then this. I know when my dad goes, that's my turn to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So after that,
But what happens when your dad starts improvising and you don't have the melody anymore? Then you got to know how to count it out with the chords. So I don't know about that strategy. That seems like he went downhill in that story. It's kind of surprising.
I listened to him play it through, and I go, okay. And the next time through, I nailed it. He just started laughing, and he reached over and squeezed my little hand, still holding my pick, and kind of tough,
awesome.
He gave me my hand a little squeeze, and even called my grandma on the phone. It was like, listen to this kid, and we played it for grandma over the phone. And so he was like proud of me, and that was a big moment for me as far as this is it, this is my whole identity is I'm a picker.
You were hooked.
Yeah. My dad was like my hero, He wore Levi's, I wore Levi's. He wore a ball cap, I wore a ball cap. I wanted to be just like him. And he would, like I said, he'd have a couple people over and be playing songs, and everybody's standing around. Everybody's smiling and laughing and having a good time and loving these songs. And I saw that from even a young age.
I wonder if Roy Electric, his hat here, sponsored him, or if maybe that was his dad's hat. He said if his dad wore a ball cap, he'd wear a ball cap. So maybe he just stole it from his dad or something.
How much joy he was bringing to people. And he's like, man, everybody loves my dad, you know?
That's awesome.
Because he's just a jolly guy sitting there playing songs, and who doesn't love that, you know?
Right.
Who doesn't want to hang with that guy? And then they took me to a bluegrass festival. I must have been about 4 years old. Charlotte Bluegrass Festival.
He's 4 again? What?
In Michigan. Ralph Stanley was there, Jim and Jesse, a bunch of them. I think maybe Larry Sparks might have been on that bill.
Now, did your dad know any of them or not?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
They were God.
Rick was, I think Rick was trying to figure out how much nepotism has been in Billy's career. Rick is smart. He's tricksy.
Gods to us.
Yeah, they were
They were Mount Rush. I mean,
yeah.
these guys are stars
Yeah.
to us. But yeah, I remember going to that bluegrass festival, and so I had heard Doc Watson's music, Bill Monroe's music, Flatt and Scruggs, Ralph and Carter, and the Osborne Brothers, and Larry Sparks, Jimmy Martin, stuff like that around my house on records. I heard my dad playing those songs. I played those songs, you know, just all the classic bluegrass songs. But when I went to that bluegrass festival, I heard it live.
Yeah.
And I seen those guys in their suits with their hats, gold-plated old Gibson master tone banjos, stepping up to a mic. It was gangster, dude. Like, they walked through the crowd like, you know what I mean? They were tall, and they carried these banjo cases, and they just looked so good. And then they get up on stage, and I'm hearing twin fiddle, you know, or banjo, like I said, stepping up into a 57, coming through a PA, 3-part harmonies, ripping, you know, and it's just like, I was floored.
This is so disjointed. It's like if I'm describing why I liked cars, it's like, yeah, dude, I was 4 and I walked up and I saw a car and like the wheels spinning and the windshield with the driver and the bat, like with the music like from the car and the road, how it sat on the road. I don't know. I shouldn't be making fun of him. It's just kind of a funny way to describe him falling in love with the music, I guess.
Right.
I mean, it was like the moment when I was a little kid when I saw the fire truck or the policeman or the whatever. It was like, I want to be a policeman, or I want to be like, no, I want to fucking do that. Like, look at, it was just, they were so cool to me, you know what I mean? And I remember probably shortly after that, I was in kindergarten and I made this little, we were making a book, like, you know, this is my friend that I weigh 43 pounds this year and the whatever. And when I grow up, I want to be and it was a blank line, and I drew a picture of a guy with a banjo, you know. I want to be a bluegrass player.
Oh man, he wanted to be a banjo player and then he started playing guitar. Dude, you wasted all your potential. That's so sad to see.
When I grow up, it's always been the shit to me, man.
So did you just play guitar all the time when you were a kid then? You were just obsessed immediately?
Pretty much. You know, there was a lot of picking, like I said, around my house. There was this campground that was owned by a dear friend of ours. His name was Brad Lasco, and he was a banjo player. He was my dad's, like, best friend.
Okay.
So a lot of times it was me and my dad and Brad. Sometimes there'd be a bass player or somebody else that would come join, but the three of us was the main. We could sit there and play all night, you know, and him and Brad would sing songs. I didn't sing a lot. Like I said, I played rhythm for the first several years of, I mean, until I was a teenager, really.
Right.
Which was really formative for me, and I got to listen a bunch.
Yeah.
I got to listen to those melodies, and I got to listen to the vocal harmonies, because I was just playing rhythm, but what I'm really doing is listening to the, just like on Beaumont Rag.
Yeah.
So when I was little, I used to think I was like magic or something. I could just tell what chord was coming next.
That's an amazing start to a professional bluegrass player. Just having what? He started playing when he was 4, and then he didn't play breaks until he was a teenager, so he had 9 years of just playing rhythm and listening to the whole bluegrass repertoire. That's an incredible, amazing introduction. The way that would develop your instincts is ridiculous. That, yeah. Crazy, crazy good foundation.
I didn't know there was the use of, you know, 7th chords and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't know the song, and I'd just be like, oh, I think there's a C chord coming up next, and I'd hit it, and wow, how did I know that, you know? And I used to think I was the shit or something, you know, but yeah, my dad would do something like that, and my ear would lead me to the next chord.
Yeah.
And I was like, how did I know, you know? So yeah, I learned just by ear, and by picking and just hearing the songs. And bluegrass harmony, you know, like vocal harmony, was a thing that kind of seeped into my heart and soul early on. Hearing my dad and Brad sing those songs, and I noticed how my dad would stay here sometimes and Brad would be up. Sometimes they'd both go up. Sometimes only one person would move.
They wouldn't do straight thirds. They'd sometimes have
The difference between parallel, similar, and oblique harmony. Very good. Very good, Billy.
fourths and things like that where the follow the chords.
Yeah,
like
I mean,
that.
just the lonesome sound of bluegrass,
Yeah.
you know, like the harmony.
If you watch the Pythagoras video, you know what he's talking about. That high lonesome sound. That's a good video. If you haven't seen the Pythagoras video, go watch it. That's a good one. But yeah, it sounds like Billy had an entire childhood of just developing musical instinct, which is awesome, and no doubt has served him through his career more than almost anything else he's ever done. Probably even more than all the practice he's had to do since then, no doubt, because the practice, all of that was built upon his great instincts that he has for the music. And that's a really good lesson here. Like, if you're trying to get into a certain style of music, you really want to be immersing yourself in it as much as possible, not just practicing it on your instrument, because you will absorb so much stuff through listening to the music and even just playing the chords along with it that you will not get just from like structured practice. So if you're trying to learn bluegrass or jazz or, you know, whatever, the first and best step that you can take is probably just to listen to it all the time. And that will do more for you than actually practicing the music. So yeah, great stuff from Billy here.
And so that kind of seeped into my ears where I can hear somebody sing like a lead vocal and I just hear the tenor part and the baritone. Baritone's a little harder to find sometimes. And sometimes if the chords are moving around a lot, it's a little harder. But for the most part, it's like I can just hear the harmony, you know, and I have been able to since I was a little kid, kind of just knowing where, okay, well, if you're singing here and I'm on tenor, this is my part.
I'd like to take a second to talk to you about this channel. The people
nope.
that being from Michigan, people are like, well, it's Michigan, bluegrass in Michigan?
It spreads, for one thing. It's a bug, and it...
It's like a plague. You aren't safe, guys. It's going to get you at some point. Bluegrass, they call it the blue plague.
And then you go give it to someone else. And also, you know, a place like Michigan, there was a lot of folks that moved up there from Kentucky and Tennessee and stuff to go work, you know, back in the day at them factories and stuff.
Yeah.
And then they stayed there, and they had their families was there, and they brought their songs with them. You know, so yeah, I mean, there's a lot of bluegrass in the Rust Belt.
When you're talking about being 5 years old, you're born in '92, so you're talking about late '90s or so, basically,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I think '97 or something would have been around the time of that bluegrass festival.
So when you're telling me this, in my mind, I'm thinking like this is the 1970s because I'm looking at it from my perspective. Or I was in '67. I was 5 years old.
It may
you know?
as well have been being raised by my parents.
Right.
You know what I mean? And truly, it was like, you know, my dad drove a '72 old truck, you know, a C10,
Yeah.
you know, and we were always listening. I was raised on a lot of older music, you know. Besides Doc Watson and stuff like that, you know, it was Hendrix and the Beatles and, you know, Black Sabbath, and Johnny Winter was a big one around my house. That's one of our dudes. You know?
And how would you get informed by that music? Did you have did your dad have a record collection?
Yeah.
Your mom or something?
Yeah, my dad's records. I remember, like, specifically times where he sat me down. He would call me from across the house. Boomer, get in here, you know?
Boomer.
I'm thinking, oh, shit, you know, what did I do? And I go in his room, and he's like, sit down. Okay.
That should have been his stage name, was Boomer. Boomer Strings. Our headlining act, Boomer Strings. That's one of the secrets of his success, is that he calls himself Billy Strings. That's a good stage name for his act.
Shuts the door. Oh, fuck. I'm about to get a whipping. This is David Grisman. You need to know this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he puts on Doc and Dog, or he did the same thing. I was 7 years old when he showed me Black Sabbath. The first record, the first song on his big...
It's just always so funny whenever he says how old he was. He's like, I had just been born, and because he'll tell a story. He's like, yeah, headlining my first show, blah 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 blah, and then he'll say how old he was at the end of it, which is really funny because you're thinking like he's way older, like he smashed his guitar in a drunken rage. He's like, yeah, I smashed the guitar, blah blah blah. And then, you know, I was like 4 years old or something. It's like, what? What?
Stereo system cranked. And, you know, it starts with the storm and the bells and,
Oh, yeah.
you know, what is this that
Should have stayed in bluegrass, Billy. This is painful to watch.
stands before me? And, God, scared the living shit out of me, man. It traumatized me. I mean, that music, because I could see Satan, you know, when I heard that shit in my little imaginative mind.
Right.
But he was also like, you know, he was like, check it out, man. Like, you gotta listen, like, you know, the riffs and shit he was trying to show me. But he showed me King Crimson. He would show me, like, he would just be in his room, like, oh, listening to some shit, geeking out, and just want to share it with somebody. And I was his dude that he did that with, man.
I'm going to do this to my kids, but it's only going to be banjo players. That's it. I'll be like, hey, Boomer, Boomer, come here, come here. And then my kid will be scared. Then I'll be like, check out this triplet lick that Noam does on Boulder Dash. Then I'll go a step further. I'll be like, okay, man, you got to transcribe this lick or you don't get supper tonight. I'm kidding. All jokes, guys, all jokes.
And you know, he would sit me down and specifically show me things. David Grisman and Doc Watson made a record sometime in the 90s. He had this one on CD. Most of the stuff was vinyl, but this one was a CD, and he was showing me that because he had just got a mandolin. His sister Julie Bell bought him a mandolin, a little Kentucky mandolin for his birthday. So he was all playing mandolin, and you know, he's probably getting into David Grisman a bunch. And he sat me down and was like, this is David Grisman, you know? So that record was huge for me, Doc and Dog. David Grisman's always been a huge idol, and you know, in our house, he's just our hero, you know. And anyone who plays with Doc Watson must be good, you know. I've since become good friends with Dog, and I've been able to introduce people like him and Del McCoury and stuff to my father, you know, his heroes, you know. And be like, Dad, this is Dog, you know? I remember when you introduced me to his music, well, here, I'm gonna introduce you to him.
To him, that's amazing.
You know, and then we sit there and pick all night, you know, or whatever. Like, I remember there was a time where we played with, Del and Dog were doing some gigs, and we played down there. And my mom and Aunt Roxanne and my dad came, and, you know, for one thing, it was like, I get to show my dad, I get to introduce him to his heroes. But on the other hand, I get to show Del and Dog how cool my fucking dad is.
Right.
You know? And he was like, it was just cool as hell, you know, to hear my dad just singing old songs with Del McCoury and with David Grisman on mandolin. Yeah. Just sitting there in a green room picking. It's like, that was just like, this is the full circle,
That's amazing.
man. And I just feel really blessed to have been exposed to so much good music growing up. I mean, it was a thing. It was like, for one thing, I never thought I'd make a living doing it.
That is why he is as good as he is today, because he was exposed to all of that. I'm not saying that he hasn't worked a lot outside of that. Obviously he has, but nothing really beats that foundation when you're just a little tiny kid and you're exposed to whatever music that you're playing from like almost birth, basically. Probably birth in his case. He's been hearing it his whole life, and that's how you get really good at music or anything, really.
But it was like oxygen in my house. It was like we played it on our instruments, we listened to music all the time. My mom would smoke a little joint and clean the house and listen to Pearl Jam, you know, and whatever, like, you know, she always used to leave a little half a roach sitting there, we'd steal them. But it was just always seeing my parents' love for music.
When your dad would say that we're gonna have a little jam, would you get psyched if people were coming over, or would they just show up and then you would just grab your guitar and sit down and play?
Yeah, it was just kind of like...
People stop by?
Yeah, if someone swings by, next thing you know, Dad gets his guitar out, and next thing you know, Brad comes over with his banjo, and a few more people swing by, next thing you know, we're on the back porch picking, you know, and once the moon comes out, you know, it all starts happening. And there was always two, like at first we would be all, you know, all picking these, we want to pick, you know, and sing some fast bluegrass and shit. But later on, after everybody had quite a few beers and stuff, you know, next thing you know, we're all playing. You know, we'd get all lonesome with it and start playing the slow
He really plays with dynamics, and he has great control over the guitar. It's really a beautiful, like, considered way of playing.
numbers. Old Mac Wiseman tunes start to show up and stuff. Man, I was just lucky to be around a cool-ass dad that knew a lot of good music. He's a great player and great singer.
You guys made a record together.
We did, yeah. We made a record.
Was that something that you were like, I got to make a record with my dad, and then just had to make time for it?
God, it was kind of eating at me almost. Because I was on the road. I've been on the road since I was like 18, 19, you know?
Yeah.
And I just have been
I thought he was going to say since he was 7 or something like that.
on the road, you know, and the years go by, and holy shit, all these gigs keep happening, and I just am rolling, you know? And yeah, I got to a point where it was like, I need to stop at least long enough to make a record with my dad, you know, before I lose the chance, you know, or something. And he ain't getting any younger, you know? So yeah, it was a big bucket list kind of thing for me to do that, get in the studio with them and all
Could you
that.
ever have imagined that you guys would record together?
I always dreamed of it, for sure. But I never imagined any of this stuff, you know? It seemed so impossible where I was from. We always played music, but even like when I was going to school and stuff, none of the adults around me presented my guitar playing as an option as a career path.
Right.
I was sitting there playing the banjo at lunch break in school.
No one does unless your parents are professional musicians or professionals in some other like art field, you know. No accountant dad is going to be like, "Yeah, maybe you should be a bluegrass guitarist for a career." It's probably only going to happen if you have parents or like friends who are actually in the art industry, I guess.
And the principal of the school was like, "What are you going to do when you grow up, you know? Have you ever thought about becoming a journalist or something?" While I'm playing the banjo, and I'm like,
Then his name would be Billy Papers. Also,
gonna try
did he say playing the banjo?
"Becoming a journalist or something?" While I'm playing the banjo, and I'm like,
Should have stuck with that, Billy. Why'd you be a guitarist? Gross. Should have been a banjo player. So sad to see. Also, what are these shoes that Rick is wearing? I am so confused right now. Is that like the Nike symbol imprinted on the shoe? What?
I'm gonna try to play music, you know, but apparently you don't think I'm capable or like that's a good idea or something. So it never seemed like a good, feasible option. And I honestly thought I would become a drug addict or wither away or end up in prison or some shit like a lot of my buddies did.
That's my intended career path as well. Imagine the principal asked me what I'm gonna do. Yeah, first drug addict, then waste away, and then end up in prison. That's my three-step plan. Pro tip: don't say that when employers ask you where you see yourself in 5 years. That I didn't get the job.
You know, or whatever happened, you know, but at some point when I moved out of like my hometown, I moved up to Traverse City, Michigan, and there was a different reception up there. There was an art gallery, and people were painting pictures and brewing craft beer, and there was restaurants, and there was, you know, people were into music and stuff. And I went out to a couple open mic nights, you know, and started going. And I got a standing ovation. And I'm like, what, these people never heard of Doc Watson before?
Right.
And they're just like, wow. And I was just like, whoa, maybe I should do this. So I was working at a hotel at the time, the Grand Traverse Resort, and I was not a good employee.
What were you doing there? What was your job?
Washing windows, taking out the trash, vacuuming shit, cleaning up people's puke, you know? And at first I started cleaning rooms, and then I switched over to where I got a walkie-talkie and I could basically walk around the hotel all day pretending to do stuff.
Right.
And that's what I did.
That's a perfect job.
Yeah.
Perfect musician job.
It was
right there.
great. I mean, and God bless my boss too. I think she was like a fan of my play, because I was playing gigs too.
Yeah.
And my boss had come out to see me play, and she was like a fan, and it felt like I couldn't get fired or something. I seen people get fired for way less than shit I was pulling.
What's interesting about playing bluegrass is that so much of it is knowing tunes, right? Everybody has this kind of group of tunes that people play, and you can really play by yourself. You do all the single note playing like that has groove to it, that, you know, playing tunes like that. And unlike most guitar playing, it's very self-sufficient. You don't need anyone. You're playing there, and I'm like, yeah. Even without singing, then you put singing on top of it, and then you can accompany yourself and play. I mean, you're making it happen with single notes. How do you develop that? How did you develop that?
Man, I think, honestly, Doc...
That's a really interesting question from Rick. I'm not sure how I would answer that personally, so I hope Billy has a really good answer.
Watson is a huge influence for me, and I feel like a lot of his stuff, which is really an interesting kind of way of playing, is he plays a lot of leads that exist right inside of the chords. Like maybe Way Downtown or something like a... I'm really just playing, but I'm playing melodies within there, you know?
But your right hand is so accurate.
I mean,
It's really super loose. There's no bum notes in there.
I think a lot of what he's doing is he'll do single note runs and then he starts strumming the chord, at least partially. I think that has something to do with it because that adds a lot of interest and it sounds like there's more than one part going on. So I think that does add a lot of interest when he's playing solo.
There. I mean, you're super accurate when you're playing.
They're just going by fast. There's a bunch of bum notes in there.
Nah, no way, man. Yeah. No way.
You know, bluegrass guys work on their timing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of like a lot of bluegrass pickers really pride them. I mean, timing is essential. That's why we work on timing. That's why we play with a metronome and why we play with other people and why we play along with tracks and stuff so we can groove with the track and, you know, ride on the train, not try to push it or pull it, you know, like, I mean, you can push it and pull it, but that's a different thing. You know, I'm sort of...
A lot of old bluegrass guys would get real mad at him saying that you don't try and push it. There's a lot of talk about drive being on the front part of the beat, and I don't know about that, but a lot of people will get real upset about Billy's comment there.
Like an old bluegrass hole about folks that play live with like a click in their ears or something, and I'm thinking, well, isn't that why
talk about that?
Like, isn't that why we practice in the practice room? You know, like to work on our timing.
Yeah.
You know, someone that's got good timing, that's a good player. You know?
And there's a collective time feel of an ensemble, and that's an incredibly important thing. That if you play to clicks, you don't get that.
If you listen to, like, I mean, some of the most driving stuff, like early Lester Flatt and Earl Scruggs and stuff, I mean, that banjo comes in, that tempo goes up a little bit.
Yeah.
And then Lester starts singing and it kind of softens back down, and by the time Earl comes back around for that banjo again, it goes back up and it breathes.
What are some of the other records that you...
I think I'll call it... Oh my gosh. He is obsessed with this chord. That was some good stuff. I think we have determined that he definitely is a real bluegrass guitarist. As for the secrets of his success, still kind of a mystery. But, you know, if you want me to watch the second half of the interview in a future video, I just stopped it here because I've been recording for a while and I don't want the video to be super long. If you want me to check out the second half of the video, maybe we can learn some more secrets of his success, then let me know in the comments. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.